The following episode is brought to you by Poison City Brewing, proud makers of Durban Poison Cannabis Lager, the beer that invites you to live your poison.
Cool, guys, welcome back to another episode of Sludge Underground. My name is Marcel. I'm not alone tonight. I've got Meagan from Levin Dove with me here tonight. We are talking to Nishalin Pillay. Nishalin, introduce yourself.
Hi guys, so I'm Nishalin Pillay. I'm basically a musician, consider myself an artist, also a corporate refugee slash recovering mechanical engineer. Basically I make beats. I'm a percussionist, play the tabla, ancient Indian drum, and that's me in a nutshell.
That's cool. I think you're the first person I've spoken to who plays what you play and sort of the context that you do it in. From what I gather, from what I've seen as well, is that you tend to do a lot of traveling, a lot of session work, a lot of working with artists and lots of different projects.
Yeah, so I mean, I love playing with a whole lot of different styles. So from samba to like jazzy stuff, and then also in a psychedelic rock band. So you find yourself like with these extremely different types of playing. So the tabla is basically this ancient Indian drum that's predominantly used in classical and more of your devotional worship kind of settings. So my plan was it's such a versatile instrument. It's tuned to a specific note, and you create bass lines on like similar to a bass guitar on the other hand. So it's a very versatile instrument. So my goal is to just spread it, and especially in a South African context with such a library of cultures and potential stuff to do.
Yeah, one thing that has been different this time around in going through your work is that I don't really have a discography to go through. It's more a process of actually discovering other musicians because, you have collaborated with over 100 musicians in such a short space of time, and it's been quite the variety. It's been amazing to see this instrument transfer over different genres. Was there sort of a strategy involved in terms of getting as many genres involved as possible, or did you just go with the flow?
Okay, so the strategy. So every year I challenge myself to do something new, and then the music became one of it. But within the genres of it, I just ended up having most of the time like these random coincidences, and you end up having a jam session after a festival, and then the next thing, this is like your main project, and you're touring Durban to Cape Town and playing like very cool big shows, and it just like kind of flowed naturally in my case. And then you kind of simmer it out and feel which projects you feel the most passionate about. And but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but the double-edged part of this is that as a musician, you have to do a lot of the stuff you don't really want to do, that background music at the weddings and corporate events and back of a bar where no one's listening. But it's also, you got to pay the bills. So you have to have those type of gigs as well. And then have those very cool, rare moments. With your pure original stuff or whatever.
Yeah, I see that you are not only part of a duo, but you're also part of Jack Mantis band. Like that's actually where I discovered you when you started to tour with him. And I see now that you've been sort of reminiscing on those times. Can you tell us what was it like touring with him and the band and going all over and to the types of places that you could actually play at?
Yeah, so that's a perfect example of the whole meeting randomly. So I met Jack Mantis band was this band that you heard of, but you never really seen. And they were coming down to my hometown, Pietermaritzburg, to play a show. So I went to watch it, and then afterwards we're chatting a bit, and then they found out that I played the tabla. So they said, come play with us tomorrow at a festival. So this was in 2016. So at the time, I've never been to a festival, a music festival. So that was my first time. I just started playing like open mic, and I wasn't like too good on the instrument at the time. But anyway, so I joined them on the Thursday, and it worked perfectly. So then the rest is history, because then we went on to I mean, we toured the country quite a few times, like back to back. And we even played with Ben Harper the once in Cape Town, and that was amazing.
That's cool, man. Like for me, Jack Mantis was a band that I discovered while actually searching for artists to interview through Sludge, and that's new to me. Like that's cool, and it's like you're saying, it's such an interesting concept being able to travel with all these guys and meeting artists, and it just shows like how welcoming the community can be.
Yeah, I mean, most places on the Garden Route and well, the whole coast actually. You tour there, and you quite like at least twice a year that you're at the venue, and you kind of develop these like little micro families across the country, and you kind of welcome and got a home or couch or whatever, like basically in every city. Uh, but yeah, they become like family along the way. Very
That's
welcoming culture.
That's cool, man. Like, what I want to ask is, with the uniqueness of your instrument and how sort of like you're saying how uncommon it is to find in South Africa, and as you're trying to sort of spread the word about it, what got you into playing it in the first place?
Okay, so that's a funny one because from the time I was in preschool to like university, actually, every class I got kicked out of, like just tapping the desk and stuff. But in grade one, I think it was, a teacher told me, why don't I learn this drum? Because I keep on tapping stuff. And then I started going for lessons as a kid, and then kind of never really took that much of interest to it until like quite recently, like a few years back.
It's a typical drummer thing, though, to just always be tapping on things. Like all the drummers I've been friends with have just got this, what you would just generally define as a nervous twitch, but it's just wanting to wanting to play your instrument. Meagan?
Yeah, just taking it back to that origins of your performance career, the open mic in 2016. What made you take that chance in the first place? Because you have your career in classically trained, I mean, Indian classical music as a formally trained version, but then there's this almost unorthodox hybrid playing that you're bringing by incorporating it into different genres. Like, what made you take that first step for that open mic?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I mean, so when I spent some time in India last year, a few months, and it was such an interesting context as a South African Indian. So my great grandparents obviously would have come from India to South Africa, but when I went there, you kind of searching for identity, and but then when I was there, I realized how South African I am. Like it's a completely different, welcoming, very friendly culture here in South Africa. So yeah, so that was when I identified that. Then it's like South Africa is this library of cultures, and we listen to all types of music growing up. To get back to your question, we listen to house music, kwaito, jazz. You could hear anything in a typical South African house. Um, so yeah, I said the tabla works perfectly with other stuff. So why not do it?
Definitely. I mean, I have been enjoying it in drum and bass. I have been enjoying it in your bossa style, your bossa nova style collaborations. I really enjoyed your collaboration with, I think it's Dave Stark.
Yes, Dave Stock, yeah.
That's been quite beautiful. Like, I really appreciate the way you've been upping your game in terms of social media and the streaming and the effort that you put into these performances, especially since you were a predominantly live performance musician. Can you tell us a bit more about the transition to the streaming world?
Yeah, so as a musician, I put all my eggs into one basket in terms of touring and being on the stage all the time. So I did record like a few records with Dave Stark, as you say, and feature here and there on random albums. Okay, so the first thing had to try this live stream out. So that's like in the first 2 or 3 weeks of lockdown, we said let's get straight into it, a live stream. So Dave Stark and I started doing these things, and it was so interesting because it was different to performing. You used to crowd reactions and just people's faces, and now you're performing to no one or one person in the kitchen. Um, but yeah, and then the other side to it is that we reached people in Germany, like Holland, the whole of Europe, America, and these people slowly started joining. So eventually we were getting like 70 or 80 people, which is not bad because it's new audiences. And that would eventually, I guess, lead to them coming to the live show in the future when things hopefully get back to normal soon.
So in terms of any project that you have going on now, I see you have a gig coming up, and you're one of the musicians that I have seen actually putting out a live stream gig guide. Is this something that you're fully incorporating into your practice as a musician now?
Oh yes, going forward, I think it's definitely taught us a lot of lessons. For example, reaching audiences, and just definitely have to incorporate it somehow. But it's not the same. I would still 10 times prefer a live show with actual people and applause, and you kind of get used to that. But we got to adapt to technology and stuff too.
Oh, I was just gonna ask about the drive-through exhibition as like one of the cool ways that I've seen artists come out and try to adapt. Like, can you tell us what was that experience like?
Okay, so cool. So that event was done by a group of my friends called the Aesthete, and so I helped out with the music side of it. So just booking the bands, and we did a simultaneous live stream. So we did a live stream that was one. There was an actual stage where people could park their cars after going around an 800-meter course, viewing art exhibitions and sculptures and live art, graffiti and stuff. And then they'd come and watch this concert, like whoever's playing in the car. And then we had it transmitted on FM radio, so they could tune in on the radio stations. And then it was also live streamed on Facebook. And what we were trying to do is get people from the area in Hilton and Pietermaritzburg to come through. And what happened was we expected like 150 people or so, and there was 500 people through the door. So it was like hectic success.
Seriously exceeded expectations there. That's always good though as an artist. It's always such a rewarding feeling to have your expectations exceeded.
Yeah, for sure. You got to aim high and then like take those weird risks. And like, for example, we didn't expect to be like the opening act for Ben Harper. So there's so many other bands in line for that Cape Town slot to be the opening act. And like, we're super lucky to get that gig.
You were saying though, with your doing the live streams, one of the weird things about it was not necessarily having that audience engagement. Now, being a live musician, I'm assuming that live performances are always going to be your go-to. But even once lockdown is over, do you think you're going to carry on with those sort of performances? Do you think they've earned a place in your overall method of things? Yeah,
definitely doing that forward. Just a balance of both, I guess. But definitely, yeah.
No, that's fantastic. I definitely want to watch more of those. Also, back to your sort of collaborating with so many people. I was put in touch with you via Reno Theron. You performed with Reno, right?
Yes, actually just once, and that was 2018. Yeah. So we played at Splashy Fen. I played at that time with a roommate and like a friend called Jessica Martin. So we were a duo, and then we had the slot at Splashy, and then we were going anyway, and then someone else canceled. Splashy had to cancel with one of the bands, so there was extra slot for me. So I had to put together a last-minute instrumental band. So I called upon the guitar services of Reno Theron and Josh Swanson. So we put a little trio, and that's the time we played at Splashy with Reno. That's just the once actually.
You got to give credit to your skills though, to just actually be able to be like, let's put together a last minute set of an instrumental band with a bunch of guys that haven't really ever played together, and pull it off admirably. That's interesting. But Reno's also one of those guys that has just been around, man. He's played with a lot of people as well.
Yeah, definitely at some point. That solo mission of mine, because that was called we ended up calling it Nish Pillay Trio, but it was I didn't like that whole solo-ish vibe where I'm talking too much and stuff. I like to I'm very comfortable hiding behind my drums and coming out in certain moments within a performance, not front man kind of vibes. But yeah, I definitely would like to play with him. I was meant to record on his album like once or twice, but kind of never worked out. I was either in Cape Town or something happened. But it will happen soon. We just spoke the other day about recording.
That's cool though. I look so forward to something like that. Meagan?
Considering your instrument as quite a versatile one when it comes to performing in different venues. I mean, you can perform at a festival, you can perform in intimate venues, you say you do corporate performances, even performances in places of worship. And I've even seen yoga and live performance mixed together. So which one of these venues have been your favorite to perform at?
Yeah, that's such a tricky one. I mean, I try to take like the best parts of each thing. So yeah, with the yoga, it's a very different environment because it started off when someone saw something about me drumming on Instagram or something, and it was a yoga school in Durban North, like kind of Umhlanga, that gap over there. Oh yeah, and so they wanted a djembe player while the yoga, like a fitness class, was going on. So anyway, I went there and I did some djembe and some tabla, and anyway, that led me to doing more there and then different types of yoga. So not the intense stuff, the very relaxing meditative stuff. So then I'll take like a guest artist or something, and then the yoga instructor and I kind of semi-rehearse a playlist or backing track or a playing with the actual musician that I play with to get the movements linked up to the music. So like if they're doing slow movements, we obviously playing something relaxing. And that kind of grew, and then more yoga studios, and then like yeah, it's done quite a few now. I think close to 20 of those events. But yeah, I don't have a favorite. I enjoy all of the different types of stuff I do.
It honestly makes me want to take yoga on full time because it previously did just not occur to me that you could experience the two. I mean, I know there's, there's music and healing intertwined, and there's a practice, many practices completely devoted to it. But it just didn't occur to me that you could combine a live performance and a yoga studio session. So I would definitely sign up for something like that if it was available in my area. Do you practice yoga yourself? Is it part of your lifestyle?
It was at one point, but I didn't really dive too deep into that. So I was more into from a youngster, I did karate, so I was quite into the whole fitness and training, and that was kind of meditations or yoga for me, I guess.
That's cool, man. Like I'm about as
And
flexible as a sloth, so you know, I appreciate the art form, but I'm not particularly fantastic at it. Sorry, Meagan, you were about to talk there. I just wanted to add that little bit in there, just in case anyone was wondering what my preference towards this was.
so I was wondering, are you moving around as much as you did pre-lockdown, since you call yourself a nomad? Are you sort of more stationary? Are you in full lockdown, or are you trying to move around as safely as possible?
Okay, so yeah, so it's been very strange for me because for the last, I mean, from March, what is that, 6 months, whatever, I've been, yeah, I've been super locked down for the first time, like in years. So it was very tricky, to be honest. But yeah, humans are resilient and we adapt and shit. Uh, but yeah, so I was in Maritzburg the most of it, except for 1 month when I was in Zululand in Ishawe. We were shooting a short documentary for like the clinics and what Doctors Without Borders is doing for this whole COVID thing. And so that was just 1 month there, and then back to Maritzburg now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, can you tell us anything more about that project in terms of the traffic and reducing traffic to local clinics?
Yeah, so that was a NGO that basically, with the whole COVID, they deep into TB and AIDS research, and that's the reason they're in South Africa. I think it's a Norwegian funded NGO, something like that. Yeah, so they set up these little tents in the rural areas nearby the clinics or wherever to get their medication dropped off there by the clinics, and then they can just pick it up from there instead of taking taxis and also congesting the clinics, especially now with COVID. So we were given the job to shoot a short documentary on that, get interviews with the staff and patients, and
It's such a cool initiative to
That's
be
really
involved
cool.
in. How did you get involved with shooting a documentary and like these sort of things? How did that even come about?
okay, so that was through a friend. So the same guy, Dave Stark, that I play music with, but he's like this artistic musician kind of guy in the town. So everyone knows if they need kind of anything slightly creative done, call Dave. So then, yeah, that's how I got roped into it because I play a lot of music with Dave, like most of the year. That's probably takes up most of my time project wise, and yeah, so we ended up doing this gig. It was just like a 3 or 4 day stint.
It's really cool, man. Like it's just like it's something so sort of wholesome to be a part of as well. And do you have more things like that coming up, or do you just take them as they come?
Yeah, so there is quite an element of like planning, and yeah, you also in the music industry, so about just like trying to organize shit in advance, and it's like all those emails and admin stuff that we don't really want to do, but we gotta. But yeah, most of it happens organically, and I had a lot of cool stuff. This was the year that like I was going to, well, theoretically going to like level up as a musician, and there was like very cool collaborations that were being planned, and over like international tours, and all of that was in the pipeline, and then obviously all cancelled or postponed now with the lockdown. But at the moment, there's no solid plans because it's so hard to predict when this will be kind of over.
One thing that I say often is that trying to organize musicians is like herding cats. I mean, we're a very creatives are yeah, we're a weird bunch. It's like a permanent case of ADHD, which I'm assuming most of us have, if I'm going to be honest with you. Meagan, I don't know about you, but I'm probably one of the most scattered humans alive. So
It's because we're lateral thinkers, okay? And the world wants us to go forward, but we just want to go around.
I can agree with that. That's makes me feel better about myself. I'm going to stick with that one from now on.
Me too.
I don't know about you guys, but I am experiencing this thing where my creativity has become a complete commodity, and absolutely anything I can do, I will try and do. I don't know about you, but like this lockdown period has just absolutely forced me to hone in on any skill that I can use to survive. Has it been the same for any of you?
Yeah. But can I ask you a question? Like, because we just like kind of met today over the phone. What type of instruments and stuff are you with, and do you sing as well, Meagan?
Okay, so I sing, and
Yeah.
that's mostly what it is. I
Okay.
could call myself a producer, but that's like saying I am an ideas person. I write
Okay.
lyrics. Yeah, that's the only thing I can really take credit for. So, yeah,
Okay. And your band is the
I'm a
Lemon Dove
professional
Duo.
listener, if anything. And yes, Lemon Dove Duo.
Professional listener. I was just testing jokes.
Yeah,
And
so I use my ears and I use my body to make things in the world that I think should be in the world because they're
Yeah.
nice. And why not?
Yeah.
that's cool though. Megan, to answer your question, like from my side, not so much. I think I explained to you earlier that I've mostly still been business as usual. There there was a time frame where we were at work less, and yes, most definitely, I put a lot of focus into the YouTube channel that I do and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I've spent most of my time at work.
And what's that work that you speak of, Marcel, if you don't mind me asking?
I
As
am
like your
oh,
daytime.
I am unfortunately a banker. A contrast to what I do outside of work. It's
Unfortunately,
it's a it's a
that's
heavy
why.
contrast. A man's got to eat, okay? I wasn't.
Yeah, Yeah, no, I get it fully. Like, I mean, for example, there's so much of pros and cons to both lifestyles. Stability is a great thing to have as well, which as like, freelancer, hippie, you don't really have.
No, I've been
But that's cool,
incredibly,
man.
incredibly lucky within this time frame in terms of that, in terms of stability and stuff like that. It's my life has been quite solid at that point, at the very least.
That's cool. That's refreshing to hear, actually.
At least. Well, no, has that maybe forced you to not process the fact that we're in this like worldwide circumstance?
I think in my case, because I deal with the public, you you deal with it up front and you're very up close and personal with it. So because you're dealing with masses of people, you're hyper aware of what's going on around you, especially with cases and stuff like that. It's quite stressful, but you have to take it as it comes, and you have to kind of manage yourself and not freak out when people just do not want to follow regulations. And
Yeah,
Nish,
I'm sure it must be. Sorry, I'm sure it must be quite. Yeah, it's quite tricky. Like if you in the public, like as you say, you're customer facing and quite tricky navigating around this
yeah,
pandemic.
no, definitely. Like in that same breath, though, I want to give a shout out to our country's health workers because the
Yeah,
things that they deal with versus, I mean, I just deal with the basic public. They are proper on the front lines there. What I wanted to
for
ask, man, have
sure.
you taken this time, this sort of, how do I say, this break, this forced break? Have you been learning new things on your instrument? Have you been learning new instruments? Have you been experimenting in even more things? I'm not even sure that's possible at this point, considering your backlog of things.
No, no, it's always possible. Uh, yeah, so initially in lockdown, I was like very productive and started learning instantly how to use the broadcasting software like vMix and all of those OBS and learning how to stream live shows. And yeah, and then it was a lot of cool stuff like that, like with this documentary learning and video editing and all of that was new. Um, and then I was also getting back to like my engineering drawing stuff with like design and just kind of doing some small projects here and there. But then yeah, mostly lazy weeks and just like yeah.
In the very beginning of this, you
Yeah.
mentioned that you're a recovering engineer. So is that what you studied and then music became your as your passion project or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, that was a weird one, man. That was a super weird couple of years. So I ended up like in high school in Maritzburg. I ended up doing like quite well in matric, and then it kind of was my convince myself to, and with influence from others, that was my route, the whole sciences and studying that, getting that qualification, working. And then I kind of stumbled across this music thing a couple of years back, and then it was like slowly like open mics and just messing around, and then it's like, yeah, it's getting very cool, and then getting some payments for gigs, um, and then yeah, it was definitely a no-brainer. Not to say that I didn't learn a lot from engineering, but yeah, as soon as I graduated, I went into music.
That's cool though. Like I know a lot of people, a lot of musicians actually who do very interesting things out of it. I was in a band with two siblings who one of them was is just I think just got his degree in mechanical engineering, and his brother
Hmm.
is doing I think he's masters in physics or has already got it. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's interesting how like I guess a lot of musicians tend to look at it as their backup plan. If I don't make it in music, I've got this fallback. Is that how you look at it, or was it just music was always the end game?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one because it's always an ongoing debate. But for me, it's like I definitely realize that I am definitely a musician. When you find yourself like eat, play, love kind of vibes, and you have to do that, and that's what you bring to the world, and whatever, it's your gift. Um, but yeah, now like in a crisis like this, I wouldn't have minded, some sort of alternative stability, as we were talking about earlier. But yeah, man. I don't look back on that. Like, I'm very happy as a musician.
No, that's cool, man. That's no regrets at all whatsoever.
Exactly.
Looking at it, we were talking about the stability and stuff, but I envy that life so much, that being able to, be a nomad, go where you want to go, and just sort of wherever the wind takes you is where you go, and your art carries you around. And I'm assuming now that if lockdown hadn't happened, you wouldn't be locked down at this point. You would still be on the road. And is it something that has been getting to you in a sense? Do you still have that itch? Do you just want to travel?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that transition it's really tough. I mean, the first few weeks of lockdown, I used to wake up every day and go and start the car and like sit in the car. That was like my muscle memory wanted to do that, to get up and shower and like drive somewhere, or something. So it's still quite tricky, but um, I mean, yeah, I have to start moving around, I guess, but as things open up, like with the economy and stuff, yeah.
That's cool, man. Like, do you travel alone, or are you traveling with a group of people, or is there someone who travels with you, or do you just move around as you please?
Okay, so it's basically hopping around with the different projects. So like if it's a corporate event in Joburg or like some album launch in Cape Town, whatever, it's just hopping around with a little bit of structure, but it's very randomly, sometimes unplanned, and not sure if that answered the question.
No, it does. It sounds a bit chaotic, but I'm sure there's some structure to it. It's just everything falls in place, everything at the right time.
Yeah, and if you're playing a lot, so like we did some intense tours, like it's something ridiculous, like 40 shows in 2 months, or like over the
What?
November, December, January period. It's like we did some crazy stuff with Jack Mantis band. We did the full band tour once, 1 year, and then 1 year we just did the duo. But it's like back to back. So Durban to Cape Town and everything back. That's from backpackers to any type of venue. Like we didn't shy away from. We're not gonna play at a bar or whatever. We played every type of venue.
That's crazy. I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact that you played 40 shows in 2 months. That's like back to back. That's a show a day for almost a month and a
Yeah,
half.
it was quite intense. It was really intense. Like literally, my hands would be bleeding, and then at the one point, it just like gets too much towards the end. But on the stage, you get the energy from somewhere. But it adds up. It takes its toll on the body, and it's not. Well, it can be, but it's most of the cases, it's not a healthy lifestyle on tour with the bad eating and beers and most of the time. But that's so dependent on the musician.
Lord, that's like a show and a half a day, man. I'm processing that number, and I can only imagine
The
the level
figures
of.
may be slightly off. The numbers may be slightly off, but it's like something like that, something
But
crazy like that.
if even if it's less, even if it's slightly less, say for instance 30 shows in 2 months, that's still wildly impressive. I mean, I know artists. I mean, even myself. I think I've last year I must have played a total of maybe 20 to 25 shows throughout the year, and
Okay.
that's that number is hell of impressive.
Yeah, I mean it's intense. It's really intense that sometimes because I mean not all the gigs are well attended. That's a national thing. Uh, that's being very vague, general of me, but like yeah, just live music in South Africa in general, when compared to say Europe or wherever. But yeah, man.
I would say a lot of that comes down to uh, not in a negative sense, but it's our culture, our infrastructure as well. Is that internationally there is that sort of culture of I'm gonna go watch some live music. It's not really a case of who's playing, but just that concept of I want to go watch some live music. And South Africans would just rather not do that.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Just like a general, maybe overall
Yeah,
appreciation
it's a
of the
heavy, yeah,
arts,
it's a
but
heavy generalization.
yeah, it's a big one. Yeah, but also like if you look at just the amount of disposable income that South Africans have, like I mean, most of South Africa is in debt, and like just not thriving financially. So then to pull out an extra $200 to a show or something, I get it as well.
Yeah, no, right. When you put in when you throw that context in there as well, that also paints a
Mm.
different picture, and it's also understandably a heavy contributor as well. Meagan?
Yeah, a lot of what I've been hearing lately is um, people struggling to maintain their performance fitness as a result of not being live gigging, performing musicians for so long. Is that something that you've experienced, or do you maintain that in your everyday routine?
Okay, so that, yeah, I mean, that boils down to practice. Like, so with most instruments, but particularly the tabla, your hands, it's all about like very intricate finger movements. So if you don't do it for like a week, you can notice a difference, no matter what level you're playing at. Yes, you can. The muscle memory is there, but it's something that you need to be at all the time, or your hands can stiffen up. So it's all about, yeah, the flexibility of the hands and keeping it loose.
I watched your TED talk on tablas, and it was very interesting. And I noticed you speaking about wrist pressure and different hand movements. And then I was wondering, like, how do you keep your hands like healthy? Like, do you have a hand care sort of routine that you follow? How do you keep those magical fingers in shape?
That's the first time I've ever got this question. But I do actually. That's the answer. So if you, yeah, so when I went to India last year, I came back. I don't know whatever happened. It's not necessarily India's fault, but I started getting this terrible eczema like on my hands, like, and then because with the tabla you use baby powder as well, so that exacerbated the whole thing. So I end up having these like big massive cuts, and it's bleeding and stuff all the time after shows, and it was the most painful thing playing for like a month period. It was like hell playing. It was so sore. But anyway, I use a lot of coconut oil, cannabis oil. Yeah, but I realized with the eczema and most skin conditions, it's more of what you're eating and your gut health and uh, keeping fit, and then the body kind of reacts. Like when I started exercising again and all of that, plus the hand oils, it slowly disappeared. That was during lockdown that I kind of cured that.
Mm. Well, I'm definitely going to take note of those treatments because as someone who also works every single day with their hands, I definitely, it's something that doesn't get spoken about enough, especially musicians. Like hand health is very important. I want to speak about your instrument, the tabla, for a second. I've noticed you speaking about it as a language and that it has syllables and vowels involved. And in terms of Indian classical music having a poetic structure, the assembly of those into sentences and into a musical language. And
Yeah.
then I noticed you saying rhythm is mathematics. So please tell me more about that, and how do you reconcile the two when you're playing?
Okay. Yeah. So, so the tabla is this very mystical, very, yeah, it's a very odd instrument. It's like the way it sounds is not the way it looks. With the you get these deep, low frequency, like 100 hertz bass lines. Um, it's unbelievable. Like when someone looks at it from an unbiased view. I'm obviously biased, obviously, but anyway, yeah. So it has a language. So it's a language of onomatopoeia, as I said in that other video that you're talking about. Um, yeah. So everything that you can say with the mouth, you can play with the hands. So da dedicate taka dedicate da 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 da, and that builds up. Yeah, you create compositions and rhyme it, and there's set compositions sent down from hundreds of years that we still play in the classical repertoire. And yeah, man, it's a very cool instrument.
It's honestly inspired me to think of music in a slightly different way. Like I've added a little bit of your perspective in terms of your instrument to my perspective on music as a whole. So thank you for teaching me.
That's so cool to hear.
I'm wondering if we can talk about your covers for a second, because I've noticed you doing um, covers from Rodrigo Gabriela to even Billie Eilish on a kitchen set. So what is it like? What
You've
makes
seen
you...
all the stuff.
Oh, I dive deep, man. When there's a lot to swim in, I love it.
Like I was saying earlier, there's a lot to unpack here, man. Like this could go on for a while. Like,
Two
That's cool,
pages.
man.
yeah,
Two
That's
pages
so
of notes.
cool.
I might be quiet, but I am listening. I'm very intrigued. Carry on.
But this is such a cool concept, like three people on the phone randomly talking crap. Well, good crap.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
quality.
Nothing
Quality and quantity.
musicians love talking
Exactly.
about music, and that is the point of sludge for all the concepts. Is just artists don't often get enough time to talk about their art as they perceive it, and their how passionate you get with this platform. You get to sort of express how passionate you are about it, and the nitty gritty, and the things you don't necessarily get to talk about, or the things that interviewers won't generally ask you about.
Yeah, man. So that's like a big up to Sludge, and thanks so much for this. Is such a cool, as you say, it's so weird. It's like it feels odd talking about myself, but like it's kind of hearing the story for the first time, like saying it out aloud. So it's quite cool. So thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure, man. And back to those covers and the talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the covers is not. So I'm like, I enjoy playing with real musicians with real instruments and less electronics as possible. That's just me. I appreciate that electronic side as well. But yeah, man, I don't really enjoy the covers, but it's fun as well. And people like it because it's a familiar thing. And yeah, I mean, it's fun, but I prefer being on the stage with real musicians. So I'm not really passionate about those covers.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like it's your own music, your live performances. I can understand those having a how do I say, a more important space in your heart as a musician. I'm a guitarist, and while covers are
Yeah,
fun, they serve a purpose. They aren't necessarily what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about writing,
yes,
expressing myself as an artist, and learning new things. So covers are more of a tool to learn new things and maybe perspective on expressing yourself in a different way.
for sure. That's a very good point. I mean, the covers definitely have a very important role, obviously. And it's also a level of familiarity with an audience. And that's very important even in an original set. Yeah, that's a very good point you made.
Yeah, like I try my best to keep music as sort of original as possible, but I do understand the value of having certain songs in your repertoire, and I do understand the delight at seeing something renewed via new instrumentation or arrangement or just the new vibe in general. So even though I'm not a fan of like the practice of covers in general, it has allowed me to see how your instrument can translate. So in this case, it's been a helpful thing for me.
I think I have a very
Yeah.
different perspective of covers. Like, I, I think they can be very valuable in terms of if you express it with your own creativity behind it. So, like if you're playing it note for note as it was performed by the original artist, you're just performing a copy and paste. But I've seen so many different ways of doing covers of, say, for instance, taking a song and throwing it into a completely different genre. That can essentially turn it into a different song, and it can resonate in a different way or a different context based on the music behind it.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
I say this like it's like I do this sort of thing where I mostly just make metal covers of things, and yeah,
That sounds like fun. That sounds like fun.
Fun fact: Billie Eilish translates to metal very well. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and what other genres do you dabble in?
So I love music all round. It's funny though, because I'm a guitarist, because I play in a metal band, and because you could say my home genre. A lot of people seem to think that that's all I listen to, but I listen to a very wide variety of things, and I always have. But I would say that doing Sludge Underground has opened those horizons even more. Things that I would never have previously have listened to. I've recently, in the last year or so, gotten heavily into rap and hip hop and genres very outside of even the way of making music is different. And when it comes to performing, I mostly play alternative rock and metal. Those are the most main things that I play. But in terms of actually playing the instrument, I like a lot of different things. Funk specifically.
That's cool, man. Yeah, it's good to have like a niche thing as well. It's because I mean, if like in my case, I'm a typical example of jack of all trades and master of none. So like you saying, you're zoning in, and like that's your thing that resonates with you, metal and rock, and but you're still like exploring others, but you kind of have your own niche.
Yeah, I would say that I have one that I'm most familiar with, one that was sort of my launch point into
Mm.
music. You know, everyone has that one type of thing that sort of sparks their love for something, and you can always look at that as their home ground. And while they may move on to something that they love equally as much, there's always that home ground. There's always that sense of familiarity with it.
Nish, what are you listening to right now? What's the last great um piece of musical material you heard?
Yeah, the album thing is tricky, but yeah, I try to listen like to as much as possible. I don't have a specific thing, but I do have phases. Like I think 2013 was only drum and bass, and then it was like only Spanish flamenco stuff for like 6 months. Like I kind of go into that zone. So now I'm in like it's a band called Go Go Penguin. It's a very weird name, but they're brilliant, like drum and bass, alternative. Uh, yeah, it's hard to describe, but they're amazing, phenomenal jazz cats. It's an instrumental trio, and I've been like addicted to them now for a while. And
Yes.
yeah, that's about it.
Have you seen their Tiny Desk?
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
Oh,
Flip.
so good. There and Snark. Do you listen to Snarky Puppy?
I don't think I have.
Oh, yeah. I'll send you some things. We can do
Oh
a
yeah,
swap.
thanks.
Yes.
You guys lost me there for a moment. I am not going to lie.
We need to start a community that's just based on cool songs.
Sure,
No
yeah,
restrictions.
just sharing good music.
But that's the beauty of music. It's so subjective. Like you can love what I hate and vice versa, and it's like it's just so based on person to person.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do believe, though, I do feel like if you limit yourself to one genre, you are doing yourself a serious disservice. If you don't listen to multiple things, if you're going to stay in one box the entire time. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
We're at a point in music where it's almost impossible to find a piece of music that is distinctly from a single genre. The amount of fusion that you can hear lately is amazing, but it's a lot in comparison to the things that are staying traditional and following all of their rules.
You know,
So I
everything's
think it's
blending
difficult
together.
to avoid. Yeah.
But if you think about
Yeah,
it,
if you
that's how.
look, if,
Sorry, Nish, carry on there.
sorry. If you look at like okay, if you go back a couple of hundred of years, like when like the first or whenever that may be thousands of years or probably the first signs of like music happened, and it's unless you're listening to like extremely ancient styles, everything we hear now is some sort of fusion of some sorts, as you said. um yeah, it's not like all the purists now. There's like, I mean, it's going to be rare to even find an old school jazz kind of thing, but even that is like a fusion of other stuff, and it's always adapting. And
It's cool though because like I also feel like even genres that people say want to be purist about are a fusion of certain things. I mean, if for instance, if you take even metal, it's a fusion of classical, blues, and so many different things, and then you get your different subgenres, and that's in so many different types of music, is that everything has come together. Every new genre, or even the older ones, came together as a fusion of other genres.
Yeah, 100% for sure.
Would you say that there is such a thing as bad music?
That's a tough one because, as you said, it's subjective. But I mean, like if you look at frequencies and how it works in the brain and certain keys and melodies, and it's proven like scientifically to have a better effect in the brain and whatever. So yeah, so I think you can kind of say what's something like that's a complete opposite of that can, I think, be considered bad music, like scientifically, frequency wise.
That was a very diplomatic answer. I'm not gonna lie there. That was really smooth, man. Like there was.
That was random.
Yeah, it's like what's bad? The opposite of good.
Can't deny my logic.
No, I can't. That's the beauty of the whole thing, though. What would you say, speaking of genres and what would your favorite music currently be? What would you say is your home genre?
So I'm really like home genre, I would say, is like that gypsy kind of psychedelic rock that I play with Jack Manchester and them. It's super comfortable. Like it worked instantly, and because it's bringing like Eastern rhythms, but also just sound effects and soundscapey, trippy stuff. And with the drum kit, John Case, my friend that plays the drums, is the best drummer I've ever heard. Not like necessarily technique, but just like feeling the music and predicting it and just holding it all together. So I just kind of fill in the gaps when he's playing the drum kit. And we end up becoming this one super drum instead of like, he knows what I'm going to do. I know what he's going to do. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Like I love that you say that you guys just become one instrument technically, because both being on the percussion side, it would be very weird if you didn't. I mean, people wouldn't exactly know what is wrong, but they would be able to feel that these two things aren't working together.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, and that's happened in the past where I didn't gel fully. And then I mean, you can get away with the most part, but it doesn't feel like 100% spot on.
Meagan, do you have any last questions?
I have lots of questions, but like talking about, I have so many questions. Talking about like how people can pick up on the vibe and like they can tell when there's synergy and when it's absent. You speak about your creative process being spontaneous and a process of learning and unlearning and trying to achieve this flow state. Is that something that you continue with now? Can we go a bit deeper into that type of mindset?
Okay, so from what you basically want me to say a bit about like that learning unlearning thingy. It was just breaking up a bit.
Yeah, like that was something that really intrigued me in terms of being able to tell where you go wrong and being able to take what you need from something and add a little bit of yourself, but like you have to let go of some things in the process. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, firstly, thanks so much for watching all this stuff. Like it's so cool. Like it's weird that you know all this stuff, but anyway, thanks. And yeah, so I mean, I'm highly inspired by Bruce Lee, and his philosophies are like timeless and incredible. So basically, with that half filling the cup, like whole half full, half empty, blah blah blah. Yes, that's why I'm losing my train of thought.
You're grappling with the cosmos right now. It's happening.
No, my mind is like boggling from like weird. Like today was a hectic day on my brain. So please, can you just please ask the question again?
Tell us how you incorporate that philosophy of learning and unlearning in your music.
Okay, so before I went, I went to India for lessons on my instrument, but before that, I obviously thought for sure that I had know how to play certain things. And so if you look at it on that level, like playing an instrument, you have to be able to unlearn bad habits and relearn and then evolve and unlearn. And that can be applied to anything as well, like with, I mean, life choices and decisions, if you look back at, yeah, it's an ongoing process, I guess.
Yeah, I really appreciate that the sort of resilient attitude towards change that I've seen going through all of your music and your content and getting to know even more about you like through this chat. You are certainly one of the more interesting people that I've been able to talk to. So thank you so much. Like this has been
Thank
quite the
you.
treat
Thank
for
you.
me. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Meagan. Yeah, I appreciate you watching all the stuff. It's very refreshing to hear. So I
At
appreciate it.
this point, at this point, I could only ask for more. Like I'm looking forward to this cool future collection of works that's like it's you, but like everyone else is collaborating on your terms, and I'm so looking forward to the absolute amazing body of work that you are going to build and currently building.
That's so cool. Thanks so much. Yeah, that's amazing to hear.
Mm,
Sludge Underground, your resident fanboys and fangirls.
yes.
Well, it's appreciated. Yeah, man, it was really cool to be here. This was such a cool idea.
Now, in closing, Nish, where can people find you? What's social media platforms can you be found on, and where can people look?
Yeah, so there's the best way to check out what I post up, trying to get a bit more diligent with Instagram and Facebook. So on Instagram, it's nish_music, nish_music, and Facebook is the page called Nish, it's just nish, and that's a Facebook page. And you'll see the weird looking bongos, which is called a tabla.
Now, one of the things that we do is we end off an episode. We play a track by the artist who has been on the show. Do you have anything particular that you would like us to play out on?
Yeah, I think so. So there's that video, I don't know if you saw it with Dave Stark, that Brandy Bossa Nova song. So there's a part there where I do this tabla solo kind of thing. That's quite, I don't know how long you need though of it.
No, it's depending on how long it is. I can I basically get it. I can edit it in, and yeah, I will definitely end it up on that.
Okay, cool. Then it's yeah, there's a cool solo in there. That would be cool, but no fuss.
No,
Any
fantastic.
kind of thing would, yeah.
Cool. And I have been Marcel. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, uh, YouTube as Marcel Smuts, Instagram as Thorns of Sludge. And yeah, Meagan, where can people find you?
On Instagram at Lemon Dove Duo or at Meagan King.
So much. It's such a simple repertoire for you.
That's where I am. Don't make it complicated.
That's fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for having a chat with us. Nish, thank you so much for taking the time and having this really, really entertaining conversation and learning so much about you and what you do as an art form.
Thanks so much, man. It was really cool to be here. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Meagan, and thanks, myself.
Yeah, fantastic.